Okay, one, two, three.
I
Let me make sure you can see all of me.
believe we're just about live now, and I'll go over. We're live. Hi, Facebook people. I'm going over to my post right now, and I'm making sure that it is going to the public. So just one tiny little second while I click one tiny thing. There, we're live, we're public. It's on my page, and we can share it to everybody. This is it, you guys. Comic Spot was started by me so that I could bring you legends, so that I can vet out veterans of comedy. And then other people in comedy would want to come along as well, and we can get to know everybody. Tonight, you have
Mm.
the legend of Marsha Warfield. I might look calm, but underneath this innocent looking face, I'm shaking in my boots. She's a legend, and I revere her. And I've looked up to you for decades, and I'm older than you.
I was gonna say you make me sound so old.
No, trust me, I'm older than you. I checked that out. I would like to read a page from her website, and I'd love all of you to go to Marsha Warfield tonight and check that out yourself and see everything she's done. Marsha Warfield, strong, proud, out, opinionated feminist. Legendary actress and comedian, Marsha Warfield's growth as an artist and a woman has far superseded her humble beginnings as the wisecracking bailiff on the long-running sitcom Night Court. She has been entertaining audiences for close to 4 decades and has no intentions of slowing down. Her calm, smooth stand-up routines have garnered her a strong following and has proven that she's a comedic mainstay while bringing her own style of funny. She has so many films and so many TV shows. Just to mention a few, she's been on Anything for Love, The Mask, DC Cab for films. That's just a few. The Richard Pryor Show. She's been on Family Ties, Cheers, Night Court, Hanging with Mr. Cooper, Empty Nest, Adam's Family. 3 pages on Wikipedia. Okay, my teeth would come flying out of my mouth if I try to say them all within the time allotted. So mad about you. How about Sybil, Touched by an Angel, John Larroquette Show? Let's get right to it with the comedian and actress for 4 decades, the only Marsha Warfield. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Fabulous. Thank you. What's it like coming from the south side of Chicago to Hollywood to comedy royalty?
No, I didn't know I did that. I was just, trying to do what I thought I did best and what I love to do. And I've always been, since I was 20 years old, I've been a stand-up. I took some time off for family and did work for a while, but my heart had always been with stand-up.
Yes. Where did you find your comedy roots?
Oh, I grew up in the 50s and 60s, so um, television wasn't that old, and it was full of variety shows, and there were always comedians on variety shows. There was a singer and usually a host. Either the host was a singer or a comedian, and there were sketches and the closest thing people a little younger than us might remember is Carol Burnett,
Yes.
but that was a long tradition. That I mean, I think the first uh, variety show I remember was Dinah Shore and Sid Caesar, and shows like that, and Ernie Kovacs, um, and so the Sullivan Show was the highlight because they were one of the few that was integrated. And so you got to see acts that you wouldn't ordinarily see. And I saw a lot of comedians there. And I always gravitated to the stand-ups, and I'd sneak up and watch the Tonight Show whenever possible, um, which was back in the day, which people don't remember because they weren't there, and they don't remember when news was 15 minutes a night, and the Tonight Show started at 10:15 in Chicago, or whatever time it started in on your part of the world, but it was 15 minutes to the hour, and they did the warm up thing, and Jack Parr was the first host. I remember the Steve Allen show. I don't remember Steve Allen as a host of the Tonight Show, but I do remember the Steve Allen show. But then maybe so because I remember Louis Nye and Tom Poston and those guys, that the man in the street stuff, and then I remember the Gary Moore show
Yes.
and shows like that. And so the sitcoms, Dobie Gillis and Armis Brooks. I think she was the first person I remember her timing and pacing, and she was deadpan and the queen of the slow burn, and I appreciated that. There weren't a lot of women doing stand up. Um, I don't know that I had seen Moms Mabley on TV until TV got to be color, in black and white. I don't remember seeing her, but I do remember the Lucy's, and I remember Carol Burnett singing about John Foster Dulles. I'm in love with John Foster Dulles. And, I remember things like, I remember seeing Streisand the first time on Ed Sullivan, and her just blowing away everybody with this slow drag People. Nobody had ever heard that song like that before, and she just kind of just took it to a doo-wop thing. I don't know, but I always gravitated to those kinds of shows and watching the stand-up. So I saw a lot of people in their various stages of development, the new comedians, one of the first shows I ever did, I had a chance to do once I got to Los Angeles, was the Alan King show.
Oh my God.
We hadn't yet transitioned from the Alan King kind of suit and tie, cigar and a drink lounge kind of comedian to the more Richard Price, Steve Martin, Robert Klein kind of Saddle Oxfords and jeans kind of
Yes.
comedy. We and then in between that were the Coffee House comics, the Smothers Brothers and the likes. So like I said, I followed them all, but I believe my first comedy crush was Flip Wilson.
Oh.
I wanted to, because when he first started, I first saw him on Ed Sullivan. He just did a generic woman's voice, and he did a bit about uh, Queen Isabella, and uh, she would run through the palace going, "Chris, go find Ray Charles," and because that's why she gave him the money so he could find Ray Charles, and so that was just the voice he did, and then Geraldine became her own character, and she became the only Black woman I had ever seen on TV that had a sense of herself, a positive, strong sense of herself. And so I wanted to be Geraldine. I didn't want to be Flip Wilson. I wanted to be Geraldine. I wanted to be that confident and like I said, self-contained, pride, proud of herself. She was, not a force to be. She was a force to be reckoned with, and so that was one of my first comedy crushes. Even though I did like the other comedians I saw, but I fell in love with Flip.
Wow. So at one point in your life, you said, I'm going to face rejection from great big masses of people or love, and I'm going to go on stage and try out material. And so what I know what made me decide to do that. What made you decide to do that?
I read an article in a newspaper about uh, Tom Dreesen starting a open mic night, and there was no such thing in Chicago at that time. There was no place for to see stand-up comedy. There really didn't exist that kind of venue in the country in the early 70s. The Improv, if I'm not mistaken, even though it was open earlier and they did have comedians, they had a format more like the Ice House where there was folk music or musical acts, and in between they would have comedians. And their open mics were music and comedy. A dedicated comedy night was pretty brand new in 1974 when I started. And so when I saw that they said anybody could go up and try, I told a friend of mine that that's what I was going to do. And I had no idea how to write, what. I had no idea. I had no concept of the rules and the structure and the whatever it took. I just said, they said anybody could do it, so I might as well give it a shot. And I made the mistake of telling my best friend, a woman named Evelyn Ivory. I told her I was going down, and then I never went. So one Monday afternoon, she came to my house and told me to get dressed, that we were going, that she was tired of me putting it off, and you said you were going, so you're going. And I said, no, I'm not. You can't just come in here and get dressed and let's go. And so she took me down there. She introduced me to Tom. In fact, she spoke up like a manager. And this is Marsha Warfield, and she's going to blah, blah, blah. And so Tom's like, yeah, right, okay. Go. And put me on about whatever time the last comic went on. And that was my first stand-up experience. And I loved it. It was me, the 6 comics who were left, uh, 2 tables, 2 of the people at the tables, each table were asleep, and the guys sweeping up because they had sawdust on the floor and stuff. So there were guys picking up stuff and moving the sawdust around.
So over the decades, you have not only done stand up but acting. And I always like to stop with legends like yourself and say thank you for the path you created for us to follow. And thank you for the dedication and other things you put on hold so that there would be a path for us. And I'm so proud of you and the work you have laid out.
Thank you, but I wasn't trying to blaze no trails. I was trying to, trying to do my career, just, um, the play the field as it lay, and I never, other people would have to tell me, that no woman has ever done, no black woman, no whatever. And it didn't really register in my brain. And now that I think of some of the things, like when the comedy franchise clubs started taking off, and one of the first ones was the Laugh Stop in Newport Beach. And I managed to get booked very early on there as a headliner. I had been working around as a middle act, but I hated that they did that to women, that they made us feature acts, and they limited us to that. And feature acts were generally novelty acts. So we were automatically put into the category of novelty act no matter what. And I said, you know what? I'm bringing as many people to this club as anybody else because none of us are really drawn. I'm bringing as many people to this club. I can do the time required. Why am I, you don't have me as a headliner? So Mike Cayley said, okay. And I got to be a headliner down there. And that started trend, well, not a trend, but just what happened in my career, where I would travel around to all these comedy clubs, which were generally in suburban areas, and or exurban areas where I would be the only Black person in town, and I would be alone. I traveled all over the country, the only Black person within miles, and knock wood, made it through, and managed to make a career and build a life.
Yes. So, what is the secret to being relatable over the decades and staying relatable?
I don't know.
I love the honesty.
I think that the whole key to stand up, first of all, I tell people, there are no rules to show business. There are no rules. Don't ever let anybody tell you there are rules. Everybody who makes it in this business makes it on their own terms. No two people have ever made it the same way. There is no single path. Even teams, ensembles, groups, they all come to their level of success individually. And so you map your own journey, however it is. And so I just put one foot in front of the other until I got somewhere, and then you figure out where to go next. And that's pretty
Absolutely.
much what I did. The one thing you have to do though in this business is be honest with yourself. If you're going to do stand up, there's nobody there but you and the audience. And the audience didn't make you any promises. A lot of comedians get that confused, especially nowadays when they talk about cancel culture and all that kind of stuff. You're out of your mind. The audience never promised you they'd like you. They never promised you they'd behave. They never promised you anything. The only thing they promised to do was show up. They showed up. They fulfilled their part of the bargain. You promised that you would be funny and you would make them laugh. You did not promise that they would laugh at all your jokes that you scripted out so uh, painstakingly and all that. Sometimes they don't want to hear that. Sometimes they want to hear something else. Sometimes they want to be funny. Sometimes they're funnier than you. So let them be funny. You're the only one that's going to get paid. Do the freaking show. Have some fun. That's what you're there for. As long as the audience is having fun, you're winning. So you have to know yourself. There's no barrier between you and the audience. The audience sees you think. They see you about to do something and change your mind. They see everything. You cannot hide anywhere. And I had the opportunity to work in around, and I loved it. I loved it. It was so challenging, but so liberating because you realize there is nowhere to hide. See, you realize you've been hiding your back because you projected forward. But when you project forward and you hear laughter from behind you, now you realize you have to entertain the whole thing. And so every move, no matter where you're going, no matter whether the stage is revolving or not, whatever, you have to make every move, you have to engage with your entire being. And you can't just be frontal. So the hardest thing is being honest with and about yourself. It's critical thinking, and it's critical thinking about you. How am I? What am I? What am I saying? Why am I saying? What am I doing? What is the point? What am I trying to do? Am I just a clown or jokester? That has value. Is that good enough for me? Do I want to say more? Am I more of an activist? Do I have things I care about and I want to, who am I? What am I trying to say? What am I offering these people that makes it worth their money? You know? And so that's been the thing that makes me whatever I am, whatever level my career gets to, it's because I'm the only me. It's like nobody, I can't do anybody else, and nobody can do me. That's not to say nobody else can be funny. They just can't be Marsha Warfield.
No matter how hard they try.
Huh?
People could watch you all day and never duplicate what you do.
And I can't. I saw Whoopi Goldberg when I started. Well, I was working around the Comedy Store when I first began to hear about Whoopi. There were only 2 or 3 Black women doing stand-up around that time that I knew of. Never heard of her. And then I was going back and forth to the Bay Area working, and people started telling me about this new Black comedian. And I better watch out because, there's a new Black comedian, there could only be one at a time because that was the quota. And so they're telling me about her, and I'm like, well, good for her, And yeah, well, she's whatever. And I'm okay. And she got a Broadway show, and I never got to see it again. Back then, the technology didn't exist to tape things and watch them later. And everybody didn't have HBO. It was for a long time, a standalone service. There was no cable. You subscribed to HBO. They came and put their box in your house, and there was a long cord, and that's how you watched HBO. And so, yeah, then they started, the cable and what we have now. But there still wasn't a lot of replay. And I was on stage most of the time when that show would come on. So I never got to see it. And then one day it was on HBO. Mm-hmm. I was home and I happened to have a TV and I saw her. And I'm watching this show and people have been telling me, she's a lot like you and this, And I'm watching this show and I'm like, she's nothing like me. What are you talking about? She's doing sketches. I don't do sketches. And then, just watching, I'm like, she's okay. And then she took a street character. She became a street character and took that character to Anne Frank's house.
Whoa.
And I went, that's brilliant. I could never do that. You could give me a pen, a piece of paper, a book, and an assignment. I would never write that bit. I would never do that. That was so uniquely Whoopi. That was brilliant. And I'm like, go for it. Because I can't do her. She can't do me. The only thing we have in common is tits, brown tits. I mean, other than that, she's her and I'm me. And it kind of reinforced the individuality, the uniqueness, and made me appreciate what it is everybody brings to the table. Everybody brings their own thing,
Absolutely. I know that you're well sought after as a speaker. And you went to Harvey's to talk to the young people and others there at the Portland Comedy Festival, like a year ago, I believe it was, at the last one. And it must be so inspiring to be able to speak about your acting, your comedy, and being, I believe you consider yourself an activist for gay rights. Am I right?
They're women and Black people and gay and equality. Equality means equality. And for everybody. So, yeah, but I think that being a Black gay woman, I kind of have a special interest in those areas. But yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm sure that people in Portland just wrapped their arms around you and loved hearing you speak.
Well, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed getting back. It took me, I was off for a good 15 years. And then I started doing stand-up again in like 2015, something like that. And I realized that for me, I had to start all over again. There's no just getting back up on the horse. And because one, I was a different person. I didn't want to say the things I had been saying. I didn't remember the things I had been saying. I had to start again. I had to write a new act. And so I started going to bar shows and just working out an act like I did 47 years ago. And and started building it up. And it takes a while, you know, but and again, it's the whole internal process of figuring out who you are now. What do you want to say? I was a 20-year-old girl when I started. I was a 60-year-old senior citizen when I started again. So that has a whole different, you're coming from a whole different place. I couldn't have picked up from where I was because that just wasn't there anymore. So
Yes. So you take all that material, you toss it out, and now you've been reborn with new material that's fresh. And I went and saw you. You were at, it isn't about me, but I did see you at the LA Comedy Club. You were headlining there. You had your own show. And
yeah,
it was so great to see you having your own show, not just being on a show, but it was your show.
yeah.
One woman show, right?
Well, I had uh, opening act and a feature act, but sometimes when they would have other commitments, I would just do the whole thing, you know.
That must have
And
been the night I saw, because it was just you. And I thought, who gets so lucky to see an entire night of Marsha Warfield? And then I got to meet you afterward, and you're so nice. And like I told you off screen, I haven't run into anybody in the business that doesn't rave about how nice you are
oh well,
as a
it's
human.
nice to hear. I try to be. I think about you know, we think about our childhoods and what is it you want and all that stuff. And the only thing I can ever think of that I always really wanted to be was a good person.
Oh,
I just wanted to be a good person.
oh
And
my
so
gosh.
uh, that's what I've strived to be. And I still strive to be, just to be a good person. You know, what more or less is there? To me, there just isn't anything. You're either a good person or you're not.
Yes, absolutely. So so that must be the legacy you still want to leave an imprint on the world regarding that, right? That's still something you want to continue. Is there anything else that you want to leave as a legacy? Not that we're ever going to die. I'm 2 years older. I'm 2 years older.
Well, you know, I don't really think about that too much. I don't know. I'm always surprised that people. I was surprised that people remembered me at all. I'm always surprised when people throw out words like legend and all that kind of stuff. And who are you talking about? You know, I never set out to do any of that. I must stand up. I do stand up. That's it. You know, and if the only thing they can put as a marker on my life is she stood up, I'm good.
That's so cool. Now, both you and I waited until our parents, in my case, my mother and especially my father, I waited till they passed to come out as a comedian. And you waited until your mother passed to come out as gay.
Right.
So we have something in common that I was not going to do stand up while my parents were alive. Did not have the courage to do it.
No, well, my mother never had a problem with me doing stand up, and she never spoke of a problem with me being gay because I had no idea I was gay until I finally came out. And then she said, well, and she said something that always still bothers me. She said, well, I knew it. And I'm like, if you knew, why didn't you tell me? Why did you keep that, work so hard to keep that from me? You know, why are you torturing me with this? You know, when you see a 2-year-old baby looking at TV and looking at Annette Funicello and going, ooh, pretty. Well, what? You know, and why do you keep it from
Yes.
the child and not allow that possibility? It just wasn't exist. It didn't exist as a possibility in my mind. All I knew is that I didn't fit in with those, you know, the kiki girls and the kiki and the boy girl thing and all that. It seems stupid as hell to me. I'm like, I didn't get it. and I didn't know that, you know, I wasn't supposed to be waiting for this girl to call back. You know, I was that if she got a date, I would be upset. And I didn't know what to do with those feelings. I didn't know what they meant. I didn't know any of that until I had been married and divorced and left my parents' house and finally moved to California and met somebody that uh, my boyfriend told me I was in love with.
Wow, your boyfriend told you you were in love with a lady.
Yes.
Wow, that's super,
Yeah. And then I
man.
went, "Yeah, oh, duh." I mean, it just, the light went off and life makes sense now. And I was 23, 24. So,
So, with regard to all the films and all the shows you've been on, aside from your outstanding stand-up career, how do you, what do you have to say to people that are out there? There's people out there doing acting to get into stand-up, doing stand-up to get into acting. You just went out there and organically stuff came your way, it sounds like.
well, I had an agent. Um, in 1979, I won the San Francisco stand-up comedy competition, and there was an agent there. Oh, and then I won the nationals, but I think he was at the stand-up comedy competition, and he came up to me and he said, "Kid, you're funny, kid," and he had a cigarette, and I said, "Well, thank you." He said, "Fred Amzell, give me a call." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, fine." Funny little man. And so when I got back to LA, I don't know, I think I might have given him my number. And I don't think I called him. I think he called me. "Kid, come down." He always called me kid. "Kid, come down here." Now I had an agent before. I had I got myself signed to ICM um, like right after the Richard Pryor show, which was a fluke. And right after the Richard Pryor show, I got booked on a show called That Thing on ABC. And they hired me, but I didn't have an agent. So I called ICM and I said, "I have a gig on on a variety show and I don't have an agent. I need an agent." And they put me on hold and they picked the phone up and said, "You have a gig on the variety show and you don't have an agent?" I said, "That's right." "What show?" I said, "That's on ABC." "You have a gig on ABC?" "Yes, I need an agent." And they said, "Okay, hold on." And then they put me on the phone with an agent who had just, I think hadn't been, had probably been in the mailroom a year or so before. But still, they gave me an agent. So I got signed to ICM. Unfortunately, he passed away. He's one of the first AIDS victims to succumb that we knew of. And so I didn't have an agent. And then I met Fred. And Fred would started sending me out on acting jobs. And I'm like, I'm not an actress. I don't need that. "Kid, just go." And so I would just go. He said, just go. And I'd go and I'd read the thing, and half the time I didn't get it. And I kept seeing the same 12 women every audition. And so I finally got, I think it was the Marva Collins story, um, opposite Cicely Tyson. And I had a scene where I had all the dialogue.
Wow.
She had no dialogue. I had all the dialogue. And I did that. And then he kept sending me out on stuff, and I would get those gigs. And finally, he sent me out on. He said, "You heard of Night Court?" I said, "I've heard of it. I've seen it a couple of times." But again, it came on while I was usually on stage or in the club, so I hadn't seen much of it. Well, the bailiff just passed away. I said, "The second one?" Another one? And he said, yeah. He said, and they want you to meet with the producer. And I'm like, why? Yeah, well, just go. Kid, just go. Are there paid? No, it's like right before they're supposed to come back from hiatus. All the scripts were written for Flo, and then she suddenly died. So 2 weeks before they go into production, they don't know what to do. They're just trying to figure out what to do at the first show. So I sit down and I meet Ryan Holwiggy, and he's in his office. It's summertime. He's got the fireplace going and the air conditioning blasting. And he's sitting there. I come in a sweatsuit with a pack of cigarettes and a little clutch, and sit down because I've been on so many of these silly auditions. I don't know, there's nothing gonna happen. So that's how I was talking to him. And he's like, I'm from Chicago. You from Chicago? You know this club? And yeah, I used to work at there. And we go back and forth. He said, give me one of them cigarettes. Fine. Like, yeah, fire it up. So we sat there, we smoked, and we talked, and we laughed about Chicago and Chicago food and legends and Captain Kangaroo and whatever else. And then he said, okay, well, we'll let you know what we decide. And I said, okay, well, I'll be in Seattle because I was leaving right then to go to Seattle to do stand-up. I'll be in Seattle, so you let me know. And left, didn't think any more about it. Went to Seattle, got off the plane. They said, call your agent. I'm like, why? Like, you got it. Like, I got what? You got Night Court. Go call your agent. Like, you people. Like, so I called, and they were only casting the first episode. And they said they didn't know what they were going to do with the character. So it wasn't an offer for the series. It wasn't a pickup for the series, just for that one show. And so I did that one show, and I was a nervous wreck because this was a top 10 show. It was the number 4 show in the nation at the time, and it was building from there. It was like huge. And John Larroquette had won his second or third Emmy. And I mean, we're talking about a cast. These people they're stars. And here I come. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. So I took a class. I told my agent, Fred, and Fred, you have to know, Fred was a character. He didn't smoke, but he smoked my cigarette. And he called himself Fast Freddie Amzell. And so I told him I needed a class because I didn't feel confident. I'm walking in on the show. I need something. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. So we had 2 weeks. So he got me right up into a class acting for the camera. I go in and they had me read a scene and said, you have a knack for comedy. And I went, well, that's good. And he said, you need to buy this book before next week's class. Read the first chapter and come back. So I bought the book. I opened it up. And the first page, the forward, whatever. And the first page, the first sentence was, the key to acting is to keep it simple. So I closed the book, never went back to the class, and went to work. It don't get no more simple than that.
That's hilarious. That sounds like how when I started doing comedy, they kept telling me to hurry up and get to the punchlines. So I turned it into a joke, and I said they were basically telling me to stay off those premises.
Yeah.
So I didn't go back. Silly.
Yeah,
I love
the joke is what you say it is. The audience don't know. If they knew, they'd do it. So yeah, that was a punchline. If they laugh, if not, there wasn't. It's real simple. I think we make it far more complicated than we need to.
I love that. I know that people make it really complicated with a lot of terms, like when you come off stage and you get lackluster results, people will say, well, you just need to learn how to read the room. Like that's the only problem you have, is that you don't know how to read minds or know what people are thinking before you get on stage. And like, do you have like one of those secrets to reading a room, Marsha?
No, I had a mentor. I had a couple of mentors at that time who were we were like that, and we always traveled together. Brad Sanders and Jimmy Cook. And Jimmy Cook was older than me. Both of them were older than me, but Jimmy was significantly older than me, and like a father figure. And he uh, took me under his wing very early, and would tell me things. And one of the things he instilled upon me, I could never grade myself or question myself. When I came off stage, he'd say, "How'd you do?" And I said, "I did okay." That was what I was supposed to say. He said, "You did okay." I did okay. He said, "Did you do your best?" Yes, I did. That's all that matters. Whatever happened, happened. Did you do your best? Yes. That's what happened. And then later, I might be able to go over points and questions and thing I wanted to talk about or whatever, but I could never critique myself. He would never allow that. So that every show I did was okay. However it came out, whatever you do is okay.
I love that.
And so I never got down on myself and depressed about, you know, I bombed or I didn't bomb. Did you do your best? Yes. Now, do better next time. Fix the stuff, you knew that when that joke didn't work, whatever. So make your own adjustments, figure it out. And that's, so I never really had people telling me uh, uh, what I needed to do and all that kind of stuff. We all talked theory, we all talked structure, we all talked comedy, we all, like comedians do, spoken punchlines, uh, we do that. But rarely, if ever, did either of them critique me.
I
And
love
I
that.
couldn't either.
I think the best results come from one person deciding for him or her themselves what needs to be changed.
Right.
When it's superimposed, there's a resistance to actually doing it, and then that's not the right time to make a change anyway.
No, and it's usually some other comedian who ain't doing no better than you. So how are you going to tell me anything? I mean, you might tell me, sometimes a comedian will tell you, that joke you do, if you do blah, 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 or I was thinking as soon as I heard it, I heard this in my head, then you can sometimes pick up things that'll really help you, but somebody telling you, you need to work on this, you need to work on that. No, you need to mind your own business and you need to do your own act, because you can't do me and I can't do you. What you're telling me to do is what you would do, which would work for you. But it doesn't feel organic to me. It doesn't, I can write punchlines for you forever if they don't resonate. And that's the thing. I am talking in shorthand now, I'm running off. But the thing about Paul Mooney was one of the best comedy writers ever, because Paul listened to you and then told you what you said.
Wow.
He would ask, he would say, "Well, what are we doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm doing a variety show. I'm, a live show. I'm introducing so and so forth, and it's for this such and such." He said, "What do you think about that?" Well, it's kind of a this, all right. Boom. Yeah. So have you ever had that before? No, you have to have that. And then he'd go away and come back and give me a script, and it was exactly what I said. But it was funny.
Holy Toledo.
It was funny. He heard humor that I didn't hear. And I could see how that talent would work with anybody. He heard Richard Pryor, he heard Flip Wilson, he heard them, and things they were just throwing away or just whatever, he wrote down and gave it back to them. And I've never met anybody else with that talent. It sounds like, he's a transcriber or whatever. There's no, you need a sense of comedy. You need a sense of timing of how that works for that person. You need to be able to hear when they're not listening to themselves. And I've never worked with a writer directly who had that kind of ability. They always come back with their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They come back with their stuff. And, then you go through and you pick jokes out. Well, I'll take that one. I don't want that one. Paul gave you a script that you were immediately comfortable with. You immediately knew you had memorized because it was your stuff.
Oh my gosh. That's brilliant. That's such talent. And what you're saying is, I think where people fall down in a lot of areas of their lives is it was in the listening.
Right. He heard you. A lot of people listened, but Paul heard. He heard that. And he heard the joke. He heard the joke and he heard you saying it in front of people and heard the outcome. And you were just talking. And he heard that. And his comedy was like that, very conversational, very, there was no subterfuge. He didn't put on any masks or to make things palatable or anything. It was very conversational and very direct. And he has had that same knack for other people, to take that same conversational and find the funny and recognize it and give it back to you. It's an amazing gift.
Amazing. In your career, what's the funniest or weirdest or stupidest or scariest thing you've ever seen in a comedy club? These stories are there could be a book about the silly things at comedy clubs and weird. And
let's see, I don't know. I've seen a few things. I saw Robin Williams take an entire audience through the rafters of the Comedy Store at 3 a.m. They had when the main room opened, they had a Comedy Store marathon. And this night, the goal was to try to get in the Guinness Book of Records. And so the show was supposed to go, I don't know, 72 hours of straight of comedy and stuff. So by, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, the first night, it was like, hey, who knows what the heck is this? So here comes Robin with Robin energy. Hey, everybody, let's go. And he says, this place is haunted and so on and so forth. And he ta-da-da-da-da. And he says, let's go see. So he takes everybody, follow me. Now, Andy Kaufman was there that night and staged a mock fight with his girlfriend. Well, nobody, you know how Andy was, nobody ever knew if he was serious or not. So nobody knew what was going on. And that was, I think, during Robin's set. But anyway, that happened. And then Robin takes everybody through the Comedy Store. And all of these people who paid to get in or whatever, they left their stuff. And I'm like, what an amazing thing comedy is. The trust that people have, it didn't even cross their minds. It didn't cross their minds to take their coats, their purses, all their stuff. Everybody left it at their tables. And followed behind like the Mouseketeers, dun, 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 and he took him, up in the rafters on ladders and walking across the scaffolds and stuff all around the Comedy Store. There, come on, let's go. And it was just an amazing experience to watch all these people trust this man so implicitly, just let's go. And they had a ball, and he had nothing to show them but dust and wood and stuff. And well, they said there might be a ghost over there. Let's go. Dun, dun, dun. And then climb up and then climb down. And I think that was probably one of the most amazing things I've ever seen.
That is a beautiful story. Where would you like people to follow you on social media or to see you live? What would you like from people?
Well, look for me on 911 on Fox. Occasionally, I've been fortunate enough to do 2 episodes so far, playing Henrietta's mother.
Okay.
And I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all Marsha Warfield whatever.
Mhm.
And my website, marshawarfield.com. And, I'm trying to stay social media relevant and doing my series of the Book of Marsha, which is a YouTube series I haven't been keeping up as much as I need to, but it's basically just me reminiscing about stories like this and my life in whatever form it takes. If it takes a visual book, if it becomes that, fine. If it don't, fine. Whatever it is what it is. And then I have another series I've been doing called White People, We Need to Talk. Where, where I do 1-minute TikToks on certain subjects that I think we need to talk about. And then there are also I do other TikToks, just playful stuff like that. And, post them to social media. And then I do it on Facebook. That's when I tend to get a little more political activist, some people say pain in the assage, whatever. But that's where I do that.
And do you have albums and specials that are still out there that people can support you and buy?
I don't want you to. Let's look ahead. Let's not look behind. That was a whole different person. That was a whole different thing. Let's do what we're doing now. Let's go forth.
Keep
I
it
think
simple.
that's the biggest blessing I have at my age. I'm 67 years old. I have no problem telling people that. And I still have life to look forward to. However much is left, fine, but I have things to look forward to, things I want to do, not just want to do, things I'm going to do, I'm planning to do. And so it's not about, getting to where I can relax on the beach and travel here and there. No, I'm still want to work. I'm still looking to explore new things and old things that are new again because they didn't exist the way they exist now. And there are lots of avenues to explore. So I'm lucky in that regard.
Absolutely. We're both Pisces. You're March 5th. I'm 2 days after St. Patrick's Day. So
Okay, now you just scraped in.
yeah, just barely.
You just scraped in, but that's okay. You're, Pisces. Pisces, the sign of completion.
Is it? I didn't
Yes,
know
we're
that.
the 12th sign of the zodiac.
I didn't
So
know.
we have some of everybody's traits, and it says the completion of the cycle. We start anew with Aries.
Yeah. So, what would you like to say in closing? I'll leave it up to you. Is there anything I didn't draw out of you that you want people? Is there any little known fact or anything about that you never thought anybody would care about, but you'd like to say? Or
I know the lyrics to every song I like. I do. I know them by heart. I have a knack for lyrics, and I know, and I mean, not just, I'm a big R&B fan. That's my genre of music, my particular. But I mean, I know standards. I know commercial jingles. I know the TV theme songs. I know the lyrics to an amazing number of songs. So that's
Wow.
just
Remember
a
that
little known
TV
fact.
show that they had where you could win money because you know the
Ain't that
lyric?
too? Dong, somewhere in paradise. Dong. I mean, yes, I grew up with that one. I grew up, I lived through about 4 iterations of that show.
Wow. Well, Marsha Warfield, you're a gem, and the world is so lucky to have you, and
Oh,
has been, and is going to continue to have you. And I look forward to everything that you're going to be doing. And
thank
I'll be out there to support you, and I'll be mentioning what a wonderful person you are firsthand now. So thank you so much for blessing me by coming here tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. And if you know a good game show that needs somebody, that's my other goal and wish in life. I want to be the Black Betty White. I want to I want to do game shows for the rest of my life.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Okay. We'll spread that word. We'll put that out there.
Well, I used to do quite a few. I used to be on Super Password, and um, uh, there were shows that was relatively speaking. And there was a show John Viner hosted. I used to do. I used to do a lot of game shows. I did Hollywood Squares and all that.
Oh my gosh. You were on Hollywood Squares and I didn't
Yes,
see that.
with John Davidson. Not the Peter Marshall years.
Yeah, with his long little microphone,
Well,
right?
yeah. Well, who? No, that was Gene Rayburn that had the long mic.
You're right.
Gene
You're
Rayburn
right.
was. Yeah, I would never. I did the second, the Ross Schaefer um, match game. Didn't get to do the original, which wasn't the original. I remember the original. The one we know is the second version of the show. I don't know if it was on the radio, but the match game, the first password, the first match game I saw where those shows were in black and white. And to
Wow.
tell the truth with Bud Collier, I mean,
That was so cool. I remember that.
yeah, I'm that old. I remember those things.
I'm turning 70.
Yeah, good for
Yeah.
you.
I'm ahead of you in
Good for
something.
you.
Ahead of
Yeah.
you in something.
I gotta tell people, and I just told somebody, they're talking about, they was singing about WAP on the Grammys. I'm like, everybody I know has one, so I ain't mad at them. We're still juicy. That's what I like to tell people. So,
Yes. R&B. Okay, one last question. Favorite R&B group?
oh, my favorite singer is R&B. I grew up loving Smokey Robinson, and when I met him, I made a fool of myself on TV, and I didn't care. I was just all over him, and I cried big tears. I loved Smokey. I have
Wow.
such pretty songs. And then Luther Vandross came along, and like, I mean, now I have I but
That's
there are
great.
so many others. That's just, and my musical taste run. I have hip hop songs on my playlist. I have jazz. I have, I'll go from Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong, which I love that stomping at the Savoy, and go from that into E40 or who knows. I don't know. I love music.
That's great. I love music too, but I don't stray very far from Neil Diamond and Barbara Streisand.
You can't go wrong. There's, that's the beauty. There's music for everybody, and we found now with the YouTube and the different music streaming services, everybody makes their own soundtrack, and you know a lot about a person by listening to the music that they collect for themselves. So I find that fascinating and interesting and
Yes.
love it. Then I
Yeah.
love for after I've heard your stuff to turn it off and go listen to mine because I've had enough. That's your stuff.
Well, I could ask you questions all night long. I will always been that way, but I'll let you go. And I'm going to type all of the things you told me where to go for
Okay.
people to see. And we'll post that and we'll see how much traction. I'll share it on 8 or 12 different places on the internet and see what kind of traction it gets. And once again, thank you so much. You made my I'm going to have a 70th birthday that's out of this world because of you. Thank you so
Well,
much.
happy birthday and many happy
you.
returns.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. I miss you already. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh,
How do you let go of this thing? It's not working.
leave.
Leave.